It's Dr. Jerome Corsi, and today it is Tuesday. It's February 27th, 2024. Thank you for joining us here on thetruthcentral.com. We're doing a podcast every weekday. You can follow me on X at Corsi Jerome 1. So CorsiJerome and the number 1, all small case. And on Substack, it's JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. And by the way, our sponsors are Swiss America for gold and silver and My Vital C. Take a look at them. If you like the show, please support our sponsors. And the links are in the sponsors up at the top of the thetruthcentral.com homepage. You just pull them down. There's good offers from both Swiss America on gold and silver, including a free book that you can get. And from My Vital C, we're going to be having a telemedicine program launching with them very quickly called GetLongevity.meds.com. Back in the telemedicine business, we'll be talking more about that in the future. Okay, let's get into the news today. The first story I want to cover is that Putin is again talking about nuclear war. Now, this was occasioned by comments that were coming out of the over the weekend from the NATO Secretary General, guy whose name is Stoltenberg, and he was saying that Ukraine will join NATO. It's not a question of if, but when. That was in a video message on Saturday, February 24th, which marked an exact 2 years since Russian forces invaded Ukraine. Now, what he's saying is that as we prepare you for that day, NATO will continue to stand with Ukraine. This is what the Secretary General of NATO was saying. For your security and for ours, this vow of NATO membership is now coming in a moment when Ukraine is really not getting anywhere with fighting Russia. Russia is can't gain another major city in this Donetsk region, the east of Ukraine, which is largely Russian territory. And the threat again to bring Ukraine into NATO is pushing the panic button for Putin. And reasonably so, because it is a territorial imperative for a major geopower and geopolitics to have a buffer zone, to have an area of influence. And Ukraine is important to Russia because it's the access to the Black Sea, and that's the access Russia has to, in the south, to the Atlantic Ocean through the Mediterranean. It's the same with Finland in the north. Finland's already in NATO, and you've got, again, that's the access through the Baltic Sea for Russia to get to the North Atlantic. Okay, now, what Putin is saying, and he said it very clearly, he gave a lengthy comment. He says, if Ukraine joins NATO and attempts to bring Crimea back into NATO by military means, it means the European countries will automatically be pulled into a conflict with Russia. And Putin is saying we have more nuclear weapons. It will be a nuclear war very quickly. And Putin is not leaving any doubt about this at all. And what's also clear is that the State Department and the military, the United States, and the CIA all seem to want to go to war with Russia. This neo-Marxist leftist group is determined it's like a death cult. I think it's satanic in nature. This whole woke is nothing more than a mind virus designed to destroy the family, eliminate God, and engage in war. I mean, the Republican Party is, not much better in terms of corruption, but the Democrats are actually going to run on a woman's right to choose for president. They're going to run on this theme, which means that they are going to appeal to more women to have more abortions and kill more babies in the womb. This is destroying life that God's created. So I don't rule it out of the question that our State Department, our military, our Pentagon, and CIA would entertain the idea of going to nuclear war with Russia. They think Russia's weak right now. Russia did not do well in Afghanistan going back decades ago now. And Russia is not overwhelming Ukraine, even though Ukraine has not the greatest military in the world. So our military has to think we could beat Russia. That's this constant nature of nuclear weapons has always been about getting a first strike advantage. They talk about mutually assured destruction and how neither side will go to war because it's clearly the end for both sides. Well, Putin's saying the same thing. He's saying that's the reality. But it's always tempting for the generals to think that they can gain nuclear superiority. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, when Curtis LeMay was on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Curtis LeMay during World War II firebombed Europe, learned how to do a firestorm in Dresden, take all the bomb a city so intensely that all the oxygen was sucked out of the city. People died. They were dying from asphyxiation. No more oxygen. And he bombed many cities that way. Then he went to Japan, Curtis LeMay, and he firebombed Tokyo. The houses were largely paper. More people were killed in firebombing raids that Curtis LeMay did on Tokyo and Japan than the atomic bombs that we dropped on Japan in World War II. So Curtis LeMay ends up with the Joint Chiefs in the Bay of Pigs, and he says, after the Cuban Missile Crisis, and he said, let's go to war with Russia. Let's invade Cuba. Well, Jack Kennedy wouldn't have it. And that we were again at the edge of nuclear war in 1962, and we're headed back there again over Ukraine. Ukraine is a corrupt country, but then our Department of Justice is corrupt. We're being run by all this corrupt bureaucracy, which is in control more than the White House. Biden is so demented that our Department of Justice says they can't be prosecuted for obvious violations of national security with how he handled classified papers going back to when he was vice president. What Biden was taking out of the White House were all the papers that implicated him in bribery deals with people like the Ukrainian oligarchs in Burisma, the natural gas company where his son, Biden's son, was hired. And of course, we have the computer from hell and all the drugs and everything that Hunter Biden did, and he's still running around free. Yet the January 6th are incarcerated in the prison because they are insurrectionists. Well, this is nonsense. This whole thing is insane. By the way, the first Abrams tank deployed in Ukraine, our great tanks, was destroyed, was shelled by Russia and in Donetsk. And it blew up, burned. So, I mean, right now, the problem is you can't fight a conventional war. And this is a proxy war. If this were a serious war where the stakes were winning or losing in a serious way, not just fighting over Ukraine, and it is serious to Putin, but not the same way as it's going to be if NATO gets into the act, because that's us fighting Putin. A war between the United States and Russia would be catastrophic. And I think these wars will very quickly go nuclear if they are at that magnitude and that level. The proxy wars can just stay conventional. But as soon as they reach a level where major powers are involved, it's going nuclear fast. Okay, that leads to the second story I want to cover. And there's several here that I want to cover in terms of this World War III that we seem to be rapidly entering. Hopefully, saner heads will eventually prevail, but not when Obama is behind the scenes trying to do fundamental changes to make us all Marxists. So Israel had an attack yesterday into Lebanon, into the Bekaa Valley, from which the Hezbollah terrorists have been shelling and sending rockets into Israel. Now, this is a major escalation of the fighting in the Middle East, because this Bekaa Valley has been a Hezbollah stronghold. It's about 100 meters into Lebanon. Okay, that's pretty deep into Lebanon. And the Israelis launched a missile attack, the Israeli Defense Force, that they struck terror targets deep inside Lebanon. Now the fighting has escalated into Lebanon. Earlier in the day, an Israeli drone was downed by Hezbollah over Lebanon. And in retaliation, Hezbollah shelled a lot of, they sent 60 rockets to an Israeli army headquarters in the Golan Heights, which is overlooking Damascus, right on the edge of Syria. So the fighting is expanding. And Israel is going, if they continue to strike deeper into Lebanon with airstrikes right now, or rocket strikes, it could become a land war in Lebanon, which is to the north of Gaza. The fighting in Gaza is extending down further south into Gaza because the Israeli Defense Force is trying to root out now Hezbollah in the more heavily populated part of Gaza, because this is where all the refugees have gone, trying to escape the attacks that are going on throughout the north of Gaza, which was the first target for Israel when they launched their invasion after the October 7th massacre attack by Hamas. So we now have actual fighting going on in two countries, Israel with Gaza, Hamas, and Hezbollah in Lebanon. At the same time, we've got the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, which has outposts in both Iraq and Syria. They've been attacking American bases, and the Houthi rebels in Yemen, which have been attacking shipping. Now, let's go to the Houthi rebels, because there's again reports coming out of the Pentagon that our military is surprised at how well these Houthi military are fighting. We had no idea the Houthi military capabilities. So we're now, the Biden administration admitted that we are 6 weeks now into an undeclared war in Yemen, where the U.S. and UK have been doing airstrikes, but we've failed to erode the Houthis' military capabilities. So the U.S. is surprised at the Houthis' military capabilities, and Washington has a limited understanding about how advanced their weapon systems are. But on January 11th, President Biden ordered the first round of airstrikes in Yemen. The White House claimed the attack was designed to force the Houthis to end attacks on Israeli-linked shipping. But the Houthis have continued to attack ships. And the commercial shipping in the Red Sea has largely been disrupted. But Biden has ordered airstrikes on Yemen nearly every day. Now, when we say Biden ordered, I don't think Biden's ordering anything, except maybe for a chair to lie down and take a nap. Biden is completely out of the picture. And who's running the White House? My guess is it's being run by Obama and his team. They still are in the top command positions within the Biden administration. I'm sure that Obama is still pulling the strings. So these recent attacks from the Houthis, which use new weapons, including naval drones, have our administration officials understanding now that this war in Yemen is not coming to the desired outcome. The Houthis' military capabilities continue to surprise the White House and the Pentagon. Quote, here's a quote from the Pentagon. We just don't have a good idea what they still have. That's one senior defense official. Multiple officials have raised the issue that Washington does not know the size of the Houthis' arms supplies, and we can't determine if the hundreds of U.S. bombs dropped on Yemen have impacted or eroded the Houthi military capabilities. So the Houthis really are in charge, and we're finding again that these small countries with their advanced weaponry and their capability of striking in these small boats, this is asymmetric warfare, and it's very effective. Same type of situation we faced fighting the Viet Cong in Vietnam, asymmetric warfare. The North Vietnamese troops were not very well equipped. They could run with a pocket full of rice, for uncooked rice, or cooking it for a week. It took very little to put the North Vietnamese army into the field. Our army had to have, elaborate bases. We had to have food. We had to have beer. We had to have all the things that come with supplying American forces. And it was very difficult to win that kind of a guerrilla war. And we're facing these kinds now of terrorist wars all through the Middle East in an expanding conflict that doesn't really show any prospect of ending. Just like there's no apparent endgame in Ukraine, except that Russia's occupying the territory it wants and doesn't intend to give up that territory. Okay, then the last story I want to cover today, we're covering a lot on war, but in fact, unfortunately, that's what's in the news, is why I say I think we're edging towards World War III and edging towards it pretty fast. A word has come out from the International Atomic Energy Agency that Iran now has enough near weapons grade uranium to make perhaps 3 nuclear weapons. So when the Middle East is in this whole edge of spiraling into a major regional war over beginning with the Gaza conflict, the IAEA head Rachel Grossi said Monday that public statements made in Iran regarding its technical capabilities to produce nuclear weapons have only served to increase concerns about the correctness and completeness of Iran's safeguard declarations. In other words, Iran is, like usual, cheating and going ahead at a faster pace than that they are allowed to under these treaties that John Kerry negotiated with Iran, where Obama sent them airplanes full of cash. So the Israelis now have to be concerned about Iran getting a nuclear weapon and using it. I wrote a book called Atomic Iran in 2006, which I said Iran knew that Israel was a one-bomb state. One bomb dropped over Hiroshima would destroy the modern Jewish state as we know it. And that's a big temptation for these Shiite Islam terrorists who are sworn to eliminate Israel from the map. They want to eliminate the Jewish state and get it out of the Middle East. So we're, as usual, in a world with very, very powerful weapons, with very difficult asymmetric war capabilities, where the terrorists are actually able to do major disruption. And we're on the edge of expanding both in the war in NATO and with Ukraine and in with Israel. And I don't see any near end to these conflicts. You've got to be willing to hear the truth on these. And by the way, if you take a look at the website, you'll see these e-pipes that we've got. They look like cell phones, and you can buy books through them. I'm selling my supply of authors' copies of books signed, and you can buy them through these e-pipes. And I'll put the website, as Chris is showing you, I've got several of them now autographed for sale, including Coup d'etat, Atomic Iran, and Black Gold Stranglehold. Black Gold Stranglehold goes along with my current book on the truth about energy, global warming, and climate change. I'm continuing to write books. I will have one out next month on the JFK assassination, which I think will shock America. Okay, let's do, and there's the free book that Chris is showing you on the screen from Swiss America. It's how the coming global crash will create an historic gold rush. I wrote this with Dean Heskin, who's the head of Swiss America. You can get this book free by calling the Swiss America toll-free number at 800-519-6268. I'm going to repeat that number, 1-800-519-6268. There's one more story I want to cover today. I'm going to ask Chris to comment. And that is the economics stories, what's going on in the economy, which, again, I think is something we need to be concerned about. There's more news today on the commercial real estate market crashing, and people are very much concerned that we could have the same kind of a disaster as we did in 2008, 2009, when the subprime market crashed. Right now, the commercial real estate buildings are not being occupied to the extent they should be to remain profitable. When you have 30, 40, even 50% of a building, commercial real estate in a major downtown area that's unoccupied, you're not going to be able to refinance it for the same amount that you previously financed it. The premise in commercial real estate is that the bubble payment at the end pays off the principal of the loan, and that doesn't work when the refinance values the property to be worth less than it was originally financed for. So we're having on the precipice right now, we're at the precipice of a major crash worldwide for debt. We have $34 trillion of debt in the United States. National debt is $34 trillion, headed right to $34 trillion. It'll speed past that and head to $35 trillion. Biden administration just seems to print cash. Another 30 billion here, another 50 billion, another 60 billion. Who cares? It's all made up anyway. That's the modern monetary theory under which the Democrats are operating. Since they're sovereign, they feel they can pay off a debt or pay the interest on the debt with more printed money. Actually, they don't even bother printing it anymore. It's just a computer digit entry somewhere in the Treasury Department. But that's okay, because our politics are a mess too. It's been reported by Breitbart, and Jim Jordan picked up on it yesterday, that this Fani Willis team, who's going after Trump in Georgia, has again determined that they have a source, within the plant, within the Fani Willis team, who's from the White House. His name is Jeff DeSantis. He's no relationship to the DeSantis who's governor of Florida, who Trump said might be one of his presidential candidates, one of the prospects for his vice presidential candidate. At any rate, Breitbart said they're 100% sure that this Jeff DeSantis was the inside man the Biden administration planted in the Fulton County District Attorney's office in order to build this bogus case against Donald Trump. And now, of course, we also have the Fani Willis scandal with her prosecutor lover. She hired and took on lavish vacations with government money. This whole thing is extremely corrupt. The Democrats seem to be totally a corrupt party right now, completely corrupt, and they hate Trump. By the way, this past week I was at the National Religious Broadcasters, the NRB, annual meeting in Nashville, and President Trump spoke at the meeting. I've seen him many times. He is looking strong. Trump's got enormous energy and power. And his message, there were about 3,000 people there. His message was wildly, enthusiastically received. And he did a great job. I mean, he was really all over the board, talking about the border, talking about the Russia, talking about the Middle East, talking about the Democrats and their woke politics. I think Trump is going to be very clearly the GOP candidate. Trump is not really GOP, although I see that Chris LaCivita is going to now, I believe, head the RNC. I think that was announced yesterday. I was starting to get some emails on that late in the day. I know Chris LaCivita. He did a lot of the public relations, the SWIFT campaign 20 years ago, after I co-authored Unfit for Command with John O'Neill, and we went against John Kerry's record, his fraudulent record as a SWIFT boat officer during the Vietnam War. But if LaCivita is going to head the GMP or the RNC, the Republican National Committee, that's a good sign, because he is definitely a Trump guy. So I'm just going to check one very quickly and see if anything comes up here on it with the RNC. Let me just quickly Google it. And we'll see if he's been, in fact, named. So I know that Ronald McDaniel resigned. And yes, let's see. There's a story right here. Chris LaCivita, Trump's campaign senior advisor, in response to a draft resolution urging the RNC to avoid involvement in Trump's legal battles. He said efforts to delay that. He's basically saying that the RNC must focus on defeating Biden, and he rejected this resolution. So that was yesterday, and I think again, I was hearing lately that he is very likely a candidate to head the RNC. I know he's out front here, talking about the where the RNC is headed, and Ronna McDaniel was no friend to Donald Trump. If Trump gets a hold of the RNC, Republican National Committee, he will be in a commanding position to get the GOP nomination. And pretty soon, I think he's going to have to just be considered the inevitable nominee of the GOP for president, because clearly, with Nikki Haley's miserable performance in her home state of South Carolina during the primary, I think she's out of it, even though the Democrats keep funding her to run against Trump. Chris, we've covered a lot of ground today. What are your thoughts?
Interestingly, if you look at what's going on, when you're and Donald Trump's running for president in 2016, 2012, and of course 2020 and this year, 2024, is a clear message to the Republican Party to rethink its direction. If anything, that's what it is, because many people within the party believe they've gone Democrat light. Others, and you'll see this from the Trump grassroots as well, believe that that both parties have forgotten the American worker, they've forgotten the American citizen, and they've forgotten as we'll put it, the regular people. So, having said that, the Republicans really need to, I'm going to say Trump's going to win unless there's some real serious shenanigans or serious fortifying of the election before November. But let's say he wins, they have to figure out who's going to run next time, where they're going to aim, and how big their tent is going to be. Because the Democrats have forgotten a lot of people that have no political home. The Republicans have done that. Trump represents the people with no political home.
It's going to be very interesting. By the way, do check out our website. We've changed. I do have the autographed books for sale. And also, we're listing the current books that I have out, including this trilogy I'm writing on the truth about energy and the truth about this Neo-Marxism. Those are 2 books. Telemedicine, we are now putting together an alliance with the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference. I've created a Spanish-speaking telemedicine service, Habla con un MD, which means speak with a doctor.com, for Spanish language telemedicine, and we're going to deliver it through the Hispanic churches, the Latino churches. We have a counterpart, which is getrxmedsnow.com, and they're both going to be active in March. And our sponsors, please for sure take a look at My Vital C and Swiss America. They shop. We do have gear up, and I'd like to see some people buy some gear. It's got a good logo. It's the Truth Central logo. I'm using the mugs of it here right now. I'd like to make sure the shop is working. So let's have some people order it and get some feedback as to make sure the shop is functioning correctly. We're constantly overhauling the website. You can see we're on a lot of different platforms. We're on Spotify, iHeart. The one I'm liking the best right now is CloudHub. CloudHub is working with us very, very closely. And CloudHub is an up-and-coming social media platform. It is absolutely not censored. And they have a CloudHub Meet, which is a Zoom alternative, that as soon as the meeting is over, the file is erased. So the group running it, including Todd Callender, Todd and I are going to write a book on the World Health Organization's power grab and this new disease X that we're being told is coming around. The deep state is not finished trying to gain control and power, but we're on all these different channels, including as a audio only. And Chris, why don't you just quickly list a couple of the channels, make sure I've got them all correctly identified.
If you are listening on your preferred outlet, and sometimes you're not able to get that, you can always find us on Rumble, as we know, YouTube, when we can be on YouTube. That's a longer story. CloudHub, BitChute, and of course, audio only. We have Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Cashbox, excuse me. You have GeoSawn. You have we have a lot of them actually. We catch you on TuneIn, Podchaser, Podbean, Google Podcasts, and yes, you can even go to your if you have one, you can go to your Amazon Alexa and ask for the Truth Central with Dr. Jerome Corsi.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. Let's wrap it up. In the end, God always wins. God is going to win here too. I know it seems dark. And the human race is always, I think, on the precipice of disaster. We're a fallen species. We're told that in the Bible. It's obvious. Yet I don't think God created the human race to fail. But he did create the human race to come to him willingly and embrace his truth, to advance the kingdom. The remedy for these kinds of dark times is 2 Chronicles 7:14, where we are urged to get on our knees and repent for our sins, for letting the world get to this point, for our personal sins. And God will hear our prayer and heal our land if enough of us join in this. We have to stop killing babies in the womb. Only God can create life. We do not have the right to take that life away. It's a huge sin against God. We've got to put God back in our schools and our churches and our lives and our marriages. When human beings lose God, they become very brutal. They become very destructive. This darkness of Noah Harari and the World Economic Forum saying that most people are useless has no respect for human rights. There's no respect for the dignity of human beings as living, sentient creatures made in the image and likeness of God. Once you lose the idea of God, you lose the value of life, except for your own. It's a dark time. We'll get out of it. We'll have a judgment of God. We've sinned massively. And we're going to go through, I think, an economic downturn. We're going to continue to be advanced in war. But I don't believe God created the human race to fail. We will have a judgment of God. And if we join in spirit of 2 Chronicles 7:14, we can begin the process of healing our own land. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Thank you for joining us today. It's Tuesday. It's February 27th, 2024. We are doing podcasts every weekday. We'll have more interviews in these podcasts, and we'll be back tomorrow. God bless.